Part 1. History Lesson. It was impossible for him to believe that the woman with whom he had just made love would soon be dead. How the body he had smelled, touched and penetrated could be turned to a pile of odourless ashes. The scent of the most intimate flesh still lingered on his fingertips, a heavy, brooding, mysterious aroma that veiled the memory of all he had yearned, more than anything, to forget. He stood and watched her through the glass. The bed levitated over the garden like a watery grave. She slept, a pitiful childlike sleep, so harmless, so vulnerable, and so very unlike the lover in whose ardent embrace he had sought the liberating rapture of oblivion. Staring forlornly at his own withered reflection, he began to recall his dream, its triggered sequence flinching like a fish against the strain of the rod. In the dark aperture of his mind, he could see the fractured montage, flashing in disjointed bursts of awkward instants. Walking with Dr. Kennett along the banks of the Thames, the towpath strewn with puddles turning progressively to sludge, the sedge sprouting like ragged fleur-de-lis, Kennett shaking his head, insisting that he has not lost his mind. A young woman in a blue dress, a huge book cradled in her arms. Kennett slipping on a stone, falling backwards into the water, flailing, sinking, unable to swim against the tide. Running from the scene into a vast hall full of elderly men, delivering a lecture on Bonaparte, for which no preparation has been done. The terrifying realization of being naked in front of hundreds of people, Kennett sitting in the audience. A swathe of thick grey cloud hung low on the horizon, veiling a disk that looked more lunar than solar. His breath coalesced against the glass, swelling and shrinking into the watermarked X that he had idly dabbed across the pane. He spotted a pair of blue tits darting along the prickly branches of a fir tree, busily pecking at the spindly green foliage in preparation perhaps for the nest. Proof enough that the world was still turning, and that spring was on its winsome way. The warmest yet, the weathermen said. According to the calendar, it was Shrove Tuesday, the old heathen feast co-opted by the church as the day before Lent, the last blowout before the big freeze. He watched as she rose steadily from the bed, the glimpse of her nakedness evoking a melancholic recollection of their sex. She draped her white dressing gown over her smooth bronze shoulders, and tied the belt tightly around her waist. She sat down, staring vacantly into the empty glass on her bedside table. "Do you really think it's going to happen?" she asked, knowing intuitively that they were both brooding over the same dark thought. He turned towards her, the ghost taking on the corporeality of wife, mother, spouse, and lover. "I think it's inevitable, Madeline," he said, with callous resignation, seeking to banish any residual doubt from his mind. She lowered her head, her body deflating with the gravity of his sentence. "I'm scared, Stuart. I'm really scared. I just can't believe this is happening." He stooped to embrace her, the soft fleece of her gown brushing against his hands. "We're doing everything we can. Tomorrow will be far away from here. Poor Edmund is so young, so innocent. I just can't bear it if..." Her voice cracked, the tide of emotion swallowing up her words. He caressed the smooth curve of her cheek, the tip of his finger catching a tear that ran a ring around his wrist, its brackish moisture tingling on the bristling hairs of his skin. "We'll soon be safe," he insisted. "Ed will be okay." But he knew in his heart that the truth was far less reassuring. He thought of his son still sleeping soundly in the adjacent room, oblivious to the storm of trepidation gathering outside. "God help us," she cried, her desperate plea trembling from under her breath, her clenched fist tugging on his sleeve as if he had become a mere vessel for the divine. He felt a sudden twinge of unease coursing through him like a chill. Somehow the word God seemed utterly absurd, a monstrous aberration whose active presence in his wife's revived faith he had tried his best to overlook. There was nothing more he could say. The ghost of Dr. Kennett, long dead and buried, was haunting him again. "Madeline, listen, something's come up. I need to get a few things from the office. I only remembered this morning." "Why? What things?" "Just some stuff I left behind that I'd like to take with me on the trip." "But we're leaving first thing in the morning. There's still quite a lot we have to sort out. Is it really so important?" "It's personal. I want to put something to bed. I'll be back soon, I promise." He planted a perfunctory kiss on her brow and turned to depart, the doleful murmur of Madeline's protest muffled by the cold peremptory click of iron into wood. "Be careful, Stuart. Be careful."